I get people that come up to me on the street crying and saying to me, "You must feel awful. Everything you did was ruined."
Illuminati is a thing you need to watch out for. They want to depopulate and slave us so much more. World domination, I'll get into that later. I'm hardcore, fierce and sexy. You're just a hater. You deserve the ridicule because you're an absolute zero. I'm the keeper of the chalice, a rock and roll hero. I'm not an idiot nobody listens to, because I'm not a failure in life like you. Let's talk about Bill Gates and the mark of the beast and the orgies in the streets at the Catholic feasts and Bill and Hillary's human trafficking ring. And George Soros got the money to pay for everything. Socialism is for losers, working for the devil. Chumps that can't fight, they ain't on my level. It takes an evil one to try to debunk and doubt it, so I'd rather die than stop talking about it. Watch out, watch out, watch out, watch out. Watch out for the Illuminati. Watch out, watch out, watch out, watch out. Watch out for the Illuminati. Watch out, watch out, watch out, watch out. Watch out for the Illuminati. Watch out for the Illuminati.
Although this is the end of my re-election campaign, it is not the end of my public service. I will continue to fight for this city, as I have for 40 years since the day I joined the NYPD, to make our streets safer and our systems fairer. The quest for justice is far from over. Inequality persists, innocents still suffer. New Yorkers deserve better every single day. And until the end of my term, I will fight for just that.
This year's mayoral race in New York City. What does it mean to the city? What does it mean to the country? What does it mean to the world? You're watching the MC Too Tall Show with your hardcore, fierce, and sexy host who is never gross, MC Too Tall. As you know, Eric Adams, incumbent mayor, dropped out of the race, and he's saying that he's still committed to public service. 4 years later, we have yet to see that, though. And that leaves another bum, a radical communist, and the only man for the job. New York has, for many years, been literally the place to be. They've made so many songs about it, with lyrics like, "If I can make it there, I can make it anywhere." Or if I can make it there, I'm gonna make it anywhere, as the late great Frank Sinatra would say. And how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Lots of practice. And songs like On Broadway, made so famous by the Drifters and remade by George Benson. I like the George Benson version of On Broadway. But anyway, New York City has always been a mecca of sorts. But that does not necessarily mean we need somebody that bows to Mecca as our mayor. And this mayoral candidate, this Intifada mayoral candidate, Zohar Mamdani, I have serious doubts even bows to Mecca. I mean, they're making a big deal that he's a Muslim, but that wouldn't bother me as much as him being a communist, a full-fledged communist. He wants to replicate Stalin here in New York City. He wants to get closer to Stalin in New York City than even the previous radical socialist communist mayor that Sean Hannity often used to call Comrade de Blasio. And he even had him on a show, and they made a friendly bet that Bernie Sanders would become president of the United States. We're still waiting for that, because by January 20th, instead of being sworn in as president, Bernie Sanders sat in the audience not knowing his fate of being relegated to becoming a meme with oversized mittens. But here we are. Fast forward 2025. We got the right man in the White House again. And we need the right man in City Hall. Now, you could say, well, Cuomo's never been mayor of New York City before, but he has a body of work in a higher office, governor of New York. He was disgraced and kicked out of office or forced to resign, giving us Kathy Huckster Hochul. And he got pushed out on some Me Too bullshit, but nonetheless, it's still a sleazy sex scandal. He supposedly acted inappropriate with girls, and that was the reason to force him to resign. It had nothing to do with some of the atrocities he's really done, like allowing for late-term abortion. Like, you could rip out your baby and throw it in the garbage on the 9th month. And he was ringing the bell in celebration of signing the bill into law that allows for that. And let's talk about more death and carnage. When he purposely crammed COVID patients into nursing homes, killing off thousands of senior citizens citywide. And that is Andrew Cuomo's body of work as governor of the state of New York. A trail of death and carnage, and both from the womb and in the lives, the unnecessarily shortened lives of many of our senior citizens in their twilight years. He robbed many families of their grandparents and great uncles and aunts of their twilight years. And so that's what we have running for mayor of New York. So he wants to take this that he did statewide and concentrate it into New York City. And Zohar Mamdani, as I mentioned, radical communist. He wants to bring Stalinist tactics into New York City, bringing suffrage and starvation and rampant homelessness into New York. And his solution for the homelessness? Cram them into abandoned storefronts. Those abandoned storefronts have roaches, rats, urine. And if you've been in the subway, you look on the beams in some of these subway stations and you see this unknown slime. It's a combination of latex paint, lead paint, rust, water. Could be rainwater, could be sewer water, could be rat puke, could be rat shit, could be pigeon shit. We don't know what the makeup of this mysterious slime that drips down off of some of these beams in the subway, and that will be going right into the mouth of our city's homeless as they sleep on the floors of these abandoned storefronts in our subway system. And if that doesn't happen, they'll surely be waking up covered in rats and roaches procreating in their box of sugar smacks. But that's Zohar Mamdani's solution to the homeless problem as he plans to implement policies that increase the homeless situation in New York. And crime? Well, he's the official Democratic nominee. Crime runs rampant because of the Democrats. Crime ran rampant under this Democrat mayor, Eric Adams. Crime ran rampant under the previous mayoral administration, under Bill Comrade de Blasio. And Bill de Blasio in 8 years screwed up 12 years of Bloomberg, 8 years of Giuliani. So that's a lot of years to screw up in 8 short years. And Eric Adams just carried the torch. Eric Adams just carried the torch. And wisely, he is bowing out. But the damage is done, and the damage needs to be undone. The damage will not be undone, certainly will not be undone, under Zoran Mamdani or Andrew Cuomo. And yes, they talk about how Zoran Mamdani is this young guy, he can relate to the millennials and Gen Zers and stuff like that. But people gotta understand the support and charisma that Curtis Sliwa has. People in those same age groups that are actually normal thinking people prefer to have Curtis Sliwa as their mayor. And as Curtis Sliwa once said on Sid Rosenberg's show, Sid and Friends, he goes, a 24-year-old girl, you think she would want to go anywhere near Andrew Cuomo? Especially under the circumstances of which Andrew Cuomo is no longer governor of New York. So his thing was be slick, win the mayoral election, sit as mayor for about 4 to 8 years, run for governor again. Stupid strategy. He should bow out of politics altogether. Have a nice life out in Jersey. Maybe find a wife and start a family. Who knows? But anyway, Andrew Cuomo screwed up the state and wants to run the city. How pathetic. Zoran Mamdani has virtually no career regarding public safety. He has less of a career regarding public safety than Curtis Sliwa, who's never held a public office. And Curtis Sliwa, as I've said in many occasions when talking about this subject, has dedicated his life to public safety. He's been in these subways since the 70s. Ever since The Warriors was being pulled out of movie theaters for its supposed violence. Curtis Sliwa was in those subways when they were as dangerous as they actually were in the movie The Warriors. But people want to disregard him because he wears a beret. That beret represents a life dedicated to public safety, and there were so many guardian angels that were injured and killed while serving the public and keeping them protected while unarmed. The guardian angels do not carry weapons. They know a few self-defense techniques. They take basic martial arts classes, so they know how to take a common street fighter down, but they're not equipped with firearms. And it was policy that even if there was some sort of license or contract allowing for that, that would continue to be policy. And as much of a Second Amendment supporter I am, I think that's very wise on Sliwa to have that policy, because then there's no excuse that a gun was misused by a guardian angel. And so, this is a person that, as I said, dedicated his life to public safety, and he was so much dedicated to that that members of New York's biggest mob family sent an assassin out to whack him, to take him out, and he's still here. So, literally dedicating a life to public safety, even risking his life for the sake of public safety. And why am I talking about public safety, public safety, public safety? Well, it's priority one in New York City. No matter what the polls say, don't listen to the polls. I speak to people, the majority of people I speak to face when in these streets at night tell me the number one issue in New York is public safety. They're afraid to come out at night. They're afraid to even come out at dusk, just at sundown. They're afraid to come out. You got women being punched in the face randomly out of nowhere. You got kids rolling up on people in scooters, ripping their cell phones out of their hands. You had the Kissimmee Park monster that tied 2 children to a tree, raping one of them. You even had a woman that was burned alive by an illegal trespasser. Majority of this all happened, including that last incident, on the watch of Eric Adams. But it was Bill de Blasio, another Democrat, that got the ball rolling. Further backing my argument, and not to make it sound like a cliche, because it is a valid argument, crime runs rampant because of the Democrats. So when crime runs rampant because of the Democrats, what's the logical thing to do? Put a Republican in office. Not an independent that served as governor as a Democrat, and not the official Democrat candidate for mayor. You vote for the Republican because crime doesn't run rampant because of the Republicans. Crime goes down when there's a Republican in charge. That is fact, that is truth, that is what actually happens. Look at the stats dating back 100 years. 100 years, I challenge you, 100 years. And you could talk about the great death toll under the mayorship of Rudy Giuliani. Are you forgetting what happened while Giuliani was president? In like the last year of his last term as president? Okay? Come on now. You're gonna count that? You're not being realistic. You're being rather disingenuous if you count the death toll from 9/11 to Giuliani's overall death toll as mayor. The murder rate dropped drastically when Rudy Giuliani was mayor. And it will again when Curtis Sliwa becomes mayor. And you know what else is not going to be killed for no reason. Innocent, lovable pets. Because every shelter in New York City will become a no-kill shelter if and when Curtis Slaver becomes mayor. So if you're voting for either the independent that's really a Democrat and the actual Democrat, that means you want puppies and kittens dead. You're okay with cuddly little pets dying if you vote for Cuomo or Mamdani. And there are people still running scared. Oh, we gotta go with Cuomo. He's a familiar face. The polls say. The people who write these polls can sit on a poll. Did you know the polls had Kamala Harris beating Donald Trump in a landslide? How did that work out? Okay. So, stop this with the polls. Just stop it. Talk about disingenuous. I mentioned the word disingenuous. Your polls. That defines the term right there. And so, here we are. The one practical choice is going to be Curtis Sliwa. If you care about public safety, and if you're one of these corporate honchos that want to keep your business in New York, you're probably going to want to go with Sliwa. Because Mamdani's going to ruin it. And Cuomo's not going to do much about the crime. And people are going to move out because of the crime. And then these big corporate honchos are going to have to move as well because they're not doing business in New York. Your mom and pop businesses will surely shut down at an alarming rate, as if they haven't already. You got doom and gloom if you elect either Democrat. And let's face it, it is two Democrats versus one Republican. It's not an independent and a Democrat versus a Republican. Cuomo is a Democrat. So, Democrat Cuomo, Democrat Mamdani, Republican Curtis Sliwa. And that's where justice has to ring out. Ring finger, not this finger. This was the Mamdani finger because we'd be screwed. So, justice has to ring out. Common sense has to prevail. Curtis Sliwa has to become the mayor of New York. Zora Mamdani must be stopped. And the way to do that is not going with same old with Andrew Cuomo. You just go with Curtis Sliwa. God will honor you for that. Respect God. Watch out for the Illuminati. Like, follow, share, comment, subscribe. Stay strong. Keep kicking that slang. It's your boy in the building. Hip-hop legend, recording engineer, underground rock and roll hero, MC Too Tall. Be safe out there. Do the right thing come November.